Welcome to the Gospel According to Star Trek Podcast's 2020 Advent Series. I'm Kevin C. Neese, and I'll be with you every Sunday this Advent as we seek out new life in the advent of Christ.
Cosmic thoughts, gentlemen?
We were speculating. Is God really out there?
Maybe he's not out there, boss. Maybe he's right here. Human heart.
Cosmic thoughts. Thoughts about that vast universe in which we exist. Thoughts about the enormity, the all-encompassing nature of the intelligence, the character, the person who causes that universe to be and sustains it. And yet, Kirk says, maybe God isn't out there. Maybe God is right here in the human heart. I think of that tiny point of connection, the tip of Kirk's thumb against his chest. So small, almost like a pinpoint. And yet there's no sense in which the greatness of God cannot be held in something so small as a human being. John says, "Beloved, let us love one another, because love is of God, and everyone who loves is born of God and knows God." Love is something all human beings understand, either because we have felt it greatly in our lives, or because we have needed it greatly in our lives. Most of us have a little bit of both. And often the place that we can't find it, or the place we search for it the hardest, is within ourselves, for ourselves. But you know, that vastness of the universe that holds us, the hand from which we will not fall, is not just cosmic. That intelligence, that person, is within us, in everyone who loves. And we love, we hunger for love, we ache for it, we need it with every breath we take. You know, we spoke before about the heavens, and I'm given to understand that the Hebraic understanding, the Hebraic view of the heavens, is everything that encompasses the farthest reachings of the sky, or as we would see it, the farthest reaches of the universe, all the way to our next breath, as close to us as our next breath, the air around us, declares the glory of God. We breathe it in. We inspire. We talk so much about inspiration, but inspiration really means to breathe into, and it is that breath of life that is the soul, what makes us alive as human beings. The breath of life that God breathes into the nostrils of the first humans, that God breathes into a baby boy born in a stable, that God breathes into each and every one of us. That point on Kirk's chest, that narrowly defined area that indicates something so important, so life-giving, so central to our being as our hearts, not just our physical heart organs, but that sense of self that we have, that somehow lives there in our chests all the same. That tiny point reminds me of another theme of Star Trek V, which is pain. And the pain is there when we feel it, right there, in the center of the chest. You've probably felt it many times in your own life, when things hurt, when they really hurt us. They really do hurt us in our hearts, in our chests. That's where we feel it. Physiologically, I don't know why. And I don't think it's necessarily important. What is important is that pain we feel is as real a part of who we are and our experience as it is real that somehow, even though our minds are in our heads, ourselves are in our chests. And we feel close to someone else when we're held against their chest. Something about that heartbeat, something about that rhythm of existence. That's where we feel warm and enveloped. That's where we feel lonely and hurt. That's where the pain pierces us. As the sword, it is said, pierced the heart of Mary, the mother of Jesus. As the spear of the Roman soldier, we understand it, pierced the heart of Christ himself. The heart-piercing pain of Mary and the heart-piercing pain of Jesus are bookends to a story that tells us that we are not far from God, that God is Emmanuel, with us, in us, through us. Fred Rogers used to ask people who were suffering to pray for him. And he asked them this because he said, if you are suffering, then you must be close to God. I think he did this sincerely, seeking the prayers of someone he did believe to be close to God. But I think he also did it as a reminder that God is not far off. God is not far away. God is not merely the hand that holds the stars as though that were a mere thing. But God is as close as your next breath. And when that pain pierces your heart, because of Jesus, you can remember that pain pierces God's heart also. And when we ask that question, where is God? God is in everyone who loves. We are born of God. We know God because we love. Therefore, let us love one another. Let us love one another into being. Let us recognize one another. Let us see and hold one another. Just as Mary held her tiny baby boy. Let us have care with one another, because each one of us in our hearts, holds God, because we hold love in our hearts, and because we are made in the image and the likeness of God. And while we go through our lives like Sybok, remaking God in our own image, God is about the business of remaking us, not just you, not just me, but all of us in God's image. So when we hurt, we remember that God not only knows what it's like to be hurt, but that God has been formed and forged in a human life through hurt. That God has come to rescue through suffering, through the suffering of childbirth, through the suffering of life and growth and pain and loss, through the suffering of death and grief. God is not far off. God is with us in our hurt and in our sorrow. God is with us in our loneliness and our pain. And I would submit to you that you are perhaps closest to God when you feel alone, because that's the greatest hurt that we can feel. And God's heart hurts when our hearts hurt, when we cry. Christ cries with us. Love is not warm feelings. Love is not just tenderness and gentleness. Love is hurt. Love is bearing the hurt of another. And God is love. You are so loved. You are so precious. At this time, when we think about the coming of Christ, when we think about God entering the human flesh which God designed, we think about God coming to be with us, to suffer along with us. We suffer a lot right now. There are a lot of us in conflict. There are a lot of us in conflict even with ourselves, with our own identities, with our own understanding of ourselves, with our sense that we have a complete inability to be known and loved truly and fully by the people around us, that we couldn't possibly tell them everything about who we are, that we couldn't possibly let them see who we are, because surely they would not love us. But God sees you as you are, exactly as you are. And does what love does. Holds you close. Holds you close. The idea that God is in the human heart does not make God small. It makes God transcendent, because God is not bound by physical space. The idea that God is in the human heart does not make God merely personal and private. It makes God public, communal, and shared, because all of us have human hearts and human experiences. The idea that God is in the human heart does not make God simple, but makes God all the more complex, because God is with us and in us through all the complexities of our lives. This time of year, many people hurt. No one's immune to that. But God is not far. God is close. God is near. Even when we can't be near one another, we can be near to God. This is not just a platitude. This is not an empty reassurance. This is not something that is said only to make you feel better. This is true. This is real. This is Advent. And now may the love of God the Father, through the grace of Jesus Christ, and the peace of the Holy Spirit, be with you, now and always, that you may truly live long and prosper.